absence. Gary Snellboyne.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
And Keith Shields.
Here.
And for the record, Keith, you have voting rights in place of Ted this evening. Acceptance of the minutes from the January 15th, 2020 meeting. The minutes did get distributed. I know some of you might have gotten them a little late and I had a chance to look through them, but I have a copy. I'm sure we have some extra copies if anybody needs to look through them. No questions?
Yeah,
Yep.
get the board's opinion on the accuracy of this. I'm listed under absent member, but on page 2 it says I arrived at 7:05. So I don't know if that's considered an absence for roll call or late arrival.
Yeah, good question. I know because, like you just said, at the time when we took attendance, you were absent, but then I did make sure it was noted there that you did arrive, so I don't know if that would involve anything to
I would interpret that to be absent from roll call.
edit, yeah, the roll call.
I'm good with it.
So, okay. Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Okay, and a second. Any other discussion or questions regarding the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, first item under new business is an update from our audit firm, Markham LLP. I was in contact a few weeks ago with Kyle, I believe is here this evening, so I wanted to give Kyle the opportunity to introduce himself and give us an update as far as where we stand as of today with our audit. I know one of the big things that I'm curious about, and I believe some of the other board members are as well, is of course timing-wise. How does it look right now as far as our time with the extension, and is it going to look like we're going to have to file again for another month of extension? So that was one thing I know I was curious about. Any other pertinent updates that you can give us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I haven't had an opportunity to meet everybody here, or anyone at this table. But just to give you background on myself, so I've been doing municipal auditing strictly for the last 10 years. So I live in the muni world, so I speak the language, and I think Kelly can kind of vouch for that, because right off the bat, we've made some good progress, and we're on the same page. Definitely going to need to file for extension for at least another month. So we were here in October and again in November, and we were prepped and ready to complete our portion of the audit. We've got a lot of the planning, the preliminary work, the kind of behind the scenes work out of the way. Some of that is now going to change now that Kelly's here and Ron is not. So we'll have a little bit of catch up to do on our preliminary work, but the base work is done. Now it's just a matter of we're going to jump back in as soon as everything's ready for us. The main things being cash reconciliations. If cash isn't reconciled, there's not a whole lot we can do because it just impacts various areas of the audit, cash being the main area. And then I think on the school side, we've got some trial balances that we're waiting on that I think Kelly's working on preparing for us. So I think once those two big ticket items, cash reconciliation and school trial balances are ready for us, we're going to be able to come back and hopefully wrap things up. I say wrap things up, we don't have 10% left to do, and we still have a good amount of work left to do, because when we came in October, November, there really wasn't anything ready for us to work on. We did spend some time with Ron kind of getting the town's fund balance to reconcile to the prior year audit, so there was a good amount of work spent on that, and I'm sharing all the information that we've gathered with Kelly, so she has everything from us. But there really wasn't too much that we could do back then. So we're hopeful that when we come back, everything will be ready for us to audit the actual field work. One other thing that we did complete, the school is required to submit their EFS, which is an agreed upon procedure, to the state by the end of December. So in the past, what you would have seen is it would have been issued, your financial statements would have been issued, and they would have just given an opinion saying we've completed the agreed upon procedures, we had issues or we didn't have issues, and that was the end of it. because the audit wasn't completed by the end of December, we were still required to submit a report to the state. So we did that. We worked with Ron Lewis here, and we completed that agreed upon procedure. Basically, what we said was, we've done the procedures, we didn't have any issues, but we haven't completed the audit yet, so there still might be issues that come up when we do complete the audit. But the important thing is that they got the report from us, so the school is not going to be penalized for a late submission, because the submission wasn't on time. We're just going to have to resubmit it once we complete the audit. And I was in contact with the Department of Education at the state level, and that's basically how they told us to go about it to help the school avoid any sort of penalty. So I was glad that we were at least able to get that accomplished. And since Kelly's been back here, she's been getting information over to us. So we are making progress, and I know that she's definitely working on things, which is great for us to see. And today she gave me a nice binder with a lot of different areas of the audit that are going to be ready for us. But again, cash is still the main priority. So I anticipate we're going to extend a month. The goal would probably be to file by the end of March, because for federal grant purposes, your single audit is due 9 months after year end, which would be the end of March. So I think we probably have that in mind as a goal. But we'll see where we are in another few weeks.
That would require an additional extension filed for the end of February.
Yeah, we're going to have to file that before the end of January for February. But we've filed a few already. I think we filed 3 already, 2 or 3, and the state hasn't given us any pushback. They're well aware of the situation with the change in finance directors. It's common. It's not just something that happens in Plainfield. There's always turnaround in the finance director position, and so they're very okay with the extension. We haven't received any pushback yet. I think they'll probably get to a point where they'll want to have a meeting with us, or even a phone conference. We've done that in the past, and we'll have to do that and go over whatever they're looking for.
Okay, so that conversation would be just to verify the situation,
Yeah.
the details, I imagine,
Yeah.
notwithstanding of any reports, but just the answer is,
And they'll typically come to us too, because if they go to Kelly, Kelly might give one answer. But they'll come to the auditors because we're independent of the town. We have no reason not to give them a realistic update. So that hasn't happened yet. We've just been extending and they've been approving.
the EFS that was filed at the end of December, is that subject to any kind of amended filing based on how the rest of the town audit goes?
Mhm.
Is there any deadlines that need to be filed or observed in that?
No, it doesn't have, the only deadline for it is the end of December.
Okay, but that can still be amended as the town audit gets completed?
Exactly. Yeah. We just didn't want to miss the deadline because we hadn't finished the financial statements yet, but they're allowing us to amend it. So whether that happens in March or April, however things go moving forward, it won't be a problem.
And as long as we file our extension before the specified deadline, there will not be a penalty for extending to the end of March?
No,
As long as we hit that deadline, we
Yeah.
file by the deadline? Okay.
yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily, we're not required, you're not going to face a punishment necessarily for filing after March 31st. There won't be a monetary penalty.
Right, just having the extension in before the proper timing.
Yep, as long as you have the extension, and the only benefit to filing before March as opposed to after March is that if you file in April, you become not a low risk auditee. And what that will require is moving forward for the next 2 years at least, a little extra audit work on my end. So I'm trying to avoid that, to be honest with you.
So you're telling us there's incentive to avoid going.
Incentive for me, and probably incentive for you guys too, because I'm gonna be asking for a whole lot more grant documentation that
And did you say that was beyond April? Or May?
beyond March 31st.
March 31st?
So we both got a little skin in the game.
Yeah, certainly, the incentive for us is March is getting into the depth of our budget season. And we already have our calendar set and all that, but, we'll certainly make special meetings as needed. But the most important meeting that will happen after it's filed is the one where you guys are gonna come back out and officially present it to us, and we have to approve it.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole process after the Board of Finance approves it, then it's part of an annual town report that then has to be posted for the town and actually approved by the people. So it's a kind of a long process, but it'll be interesting this year just because it'll be playing its timeline on top of our budget season.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sleeping with that, right?
Correct.
So that's sort of where we're at. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. If something comes up, if you want to reach out, everyone has my information. If I send some business cards in the car.
So essentially, the biggest issue with the timing and why we're behind is things weren't prepared for when you came in?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We set up. So we set up an electronic portal with Ron, and basically we said, these are the 15 things we need for planning, and these are the 25 things we need for the fieldwork portion of the audit. We got a good amount of the planning when we went through the items for the fieldwork, which was the first thing is trial balances. We didn't really get what we were looking for, and what we did get, we couldn't really make heads and tails of.
So it wasn't the correct information, it wasn't that the information, the numbers were incorrect, it was just necessarily the wrong information.
There's a combination of both those things.
Okay.
The numbers were definitely incorrect as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, because I know, he was saying the holdup was that the prior finance directors, some of the information that she had done was incorrect, and that's why it was holding up. So I'm just trying to find out, what the reason is, so if we could just move forward and have that happen.
There was quite a bit of,
Adjusting journal entries.
adjusting journal entries.
There's
I
a
don't
ton of
wanna-
adjusting journal entries that I found doing my reconciliation that was dated back to June 2018. So
Okay.
June 2018 audit was completed, now we're doing journal entries back to June 2018, so now I have to void all of those, and that affects your cash, because it's an asset, so when you roll it forward, it's off. So now I have to correct all of those.
Yeah, and when we came, we also received bank statements with some transactions that were highlighted, that was revenue that was coming in. He was like, can you help me figure out where this revenue goes to? And I'm like, well, that's not really, I have to maintain my independence.
Right.
So I can't really provide those types of services and also be your auditor. So, not knowing what's gonna happen, we had kind of recommended that you reach out to maybe a consultant or someone who would be able to come in and kind of help him fix that, because it
Okay.
really isn't our role as the auditor.
Well, that makes more sense now.
Right,
But-
yeah, it makes more sense.
Okay. You're welcome. Yeah, nice guy, and certainly we don't want to throw him under the bus too hard.
Yeah, we're
but-
just trying to get an understanding of, why we're in the situation that we are now. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was a lot of tasks when we came to the audit that I think maybe there was an anticipation that we would be able to complete, but really.
Or assist with
Or,
guidance or
yeah,
something.
which, I mean, we can give guidance and we can assist, but what we can't do is, we can't create your books, we can't create your general ledger, we can't post your transactions and then also complete the audit, kind of defeats the
Right.
purpose, and it impairs our independence, and,
Right.
we could get in serious trouble for that, so, that wasn't a road we were trying to go down. But I think we'll hopefully move past all that, moving forward, and, hopefully in a couple months we'll have a great update, and, we'll have some sort of, nice report together for you.
Did you have to verify anything with our previous auditors?
Yes, get running table.
Yeah, because I seem to remember Ron mentioning that was an issue as far as needing the transition between one auditor to another, and not understanding for some reason where they left off, or where the last audit presented certain findings, and so I was just curious.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge. I had a plan to go out and meet with a prior audit firm and look at their work papers. It didn't work out due to scheduling issues on their end. But I've been on the phone with Mike Van Deventer, who you obviously know. And he's been really helpful. He's given us everything that we've needed. So we don't have any holdups as far as receiving prior information. At least not anymore.
All right, any other questions for Kyle?
Great.
All right, well, I really appreciate you being able to make it out tonight. This is certainly helpful for us, having this opportunity to ask questions and see where we stand right now, and good to know that we definitely gotta move right along and get that next extension final, then it gives us a better idea on our timeline.
A lot of work to do, but we'll do it.
All right,
We'll get it done.
great, thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody.
All right, next up, update on status of contract negotiations between town hall employees and supervisors union contracts. I think one of our members had a couple questions that had come up on this, so I wanted to put it up for discussion. If there was any pertinent updates, I wanted to recognize our first selectman, Kevin, if you had anything to take us on with that.
Let's see, you have the list here for town hall employees, which we have dates for next week. We've already been talking to each of the unions, so we have a date, kind of compare dates where we can actually sit down and talk, hopefully sometime next week. So that's for the town hall. The supervisors union, I reached out to the supervisors union, but they've not replied back. Could be possibly because the supervisors union has been rather busy because the representative has been working the fire department for the last 4 nights and he's been extremely tired. So I anticipate contact with him, and we'll see if we can set something up very soon. Just for your information, this is not the only 2 contracts up right now for negotiation. We have 5. So for your information, we also have the chief and the captain, and I anticipate to actually sit down and start an initiation of that conversation tomorrow. And I'll get back to that in a second. And the other one is dispatchers, and they sent me an email, and I replied back trying to work out some dates with them as well. So you have 5 unions at this point trying to negotiate. So let's get back to the chief and the captain, if you don't mind a quick second.
Yeah.
I would ask then, from the board, are you looking to have a representative at any of the union contract negotiations? And if so, I would ask if you did, that we have you as and not as a part of the actual negotiation, but actually monitoring. So if that's okay with you, do we have anybody that wanted to step forward?
Yeah, I know, I'm certainly very supportive of that, because I know in the past, we didn't always have a board of finance member present during negotiations, so. And then in other negotiations, I know Don has represented before, but I would certainly open it up to the members. Again, I know Don many times has, but if there's anybody else who would be interested in it, certainly.
And you don't have to take all 5.
Yeah, right.
I may do it. I may do it.
Okay.
I can get together with you, Kevin, on that.
All right, yeah, thank you.
Great. All right. Any other questions, Gary, or anybody? Comes to
Not really, I was more worried about timeline with that and the budget and
I'll do
everything
the
else.
best I can.
That's my main concern.
You've got the usual process, Gary, because you've been here long enough. What we try to do is negotiate the contracts. If we don't get a completed contract before the time of the budget season, we anticipate a certain amount of money. That's when we usually put that into the contingency line item, just in case. So it's whether it might 2, 3, 4, whatever the percentage is, we calculate that out and put it into the contingency. So therefore, if we continue on after the budget's passed, we have it already to go.
If there's no other comments or questions, we can move along to item C, which is update on DACO contract. I know we have members from our Board of Education present, representation from our schools, the superintendent, our business office. One thing I did want to note on this is besides the contract being distributed to the Board of Finance, did we have any other, were there any other extra copies?
I do.
Okay, so in case anybody hasn't had the chance to, look at it, please do, just so you know, if you have any your own questions you'd like to come up with during citizen participation, please feel free, but I definitely want to take this opportunity to hear from Ken and anything else regarding the contract, and if we have any questions, we can fire away. Ken?
So I want to begin by telling you that Chairman Haskell apologizes. She has a medical thing that is happening right now. She believes she'll be okay, but she has to get to hospital to get checked, so she apologizes for her absence. I'm actually at your discretion. I have a document, I put one in front of you. I know you just can't read a contract in front of you, but I didn't know what you would like to learn about the contract. I very much appreciate the Board of Finance is trying to become familiar with the more substantial contracts that exist, so you have an idea when you see a budget, where that budget is, what comes in. We spend about $3 million a year on transportation. It's certainly significant. That includes much more than the contract. It includes the paras on the bus. It includes fuel that we do separately. It includes just the extra expenses that we have in addition to what the contract plans for. If we have a special trip, a field trip or whatever, those are added costs. However, what is your pleasure? What would you like to know about it? I did include some things that most people don't know about our contract. Those might be the highlights.
Well, on the base contract, it said that you could extend it for a year,
5 years.
1 year. It's a 5-year contract.
It's a 5-year contract with a 5-year extension. It's right in the front.
1 year.
No, it's on the front page.
1 year at a time.
1 year at a time. But it says, on the term agreement, it says from August 9, 2014 to 2019, and it can be extended for the term for an additional 5-year period by mutual written agreement.
Okay.
It can be exercised on an annual basis, so it's extended by 1 year.
I mean, I was told today that there is a company that wants to put a bid on it. I mean, how true it is, I'm not sure, but I know there's somebody that, if it was to go out to bid, they would like to give it a price.
The board will be reviewing this at their February 11th meeting, so that they can determine where they want to go with it. We're trying to give them the information that we're also giving to you. I did reach out to a consultant that helped us build the first one, because we did a very good job building that proposal. It was late in the year because of the arbitrator decision, and then we did get a good award, and that was really good. But when you did it that fast and we had never been outsourced, we didn't know about summer school, so now we have that knowledge. We didn't know about career students that have to get out during the day to work at Big Y, and so those were added expenses that we weren't, and that was about $100,000 not known of. Now, we budgeted later on, but it wasn't in the original contract. So I think the contract was written well, but it was for what we knew, and we know much more now 6 years later. So I want to give them, well, I've been reaching out for that, and should they make that decision. There's a good reason to go out again, because once you rebid, it's competitive. Some people may come in. I did indicate I tried to give as much clear information about the contract that people didn't realize. You know, I hear you talking about contracts. We had a supervised contract, we don't. We had a dispatcher's contract, we don't. We had the bus driver's contract, we don't. That's 3 unions. And then we had a pension because of that, and we don't. We had health insurance. Now, a single health insurance for a family, a couple, is $20,000 to $24,000. We had at least 14 of them. So picture that cost. It's just not in here. And people see the cost and don't realize savings. That these were good ideas to do, because the liability, we're held harmless. The fact that if we say we don't think this driver is meeting our children's needs, we don't have to negotiate that, we don't have to arbitrate that, we don't have to grieve it. You just say, I just don't want that person working for us. It's kind of nice. So there are the pitfalls. You know, you're working, everything is like, I can do that for you, that'll be $50,000, you know. So the pitfalls are when you purchase anything. And another pitfall that happened when we first started was we had an agreement with that was in the contract, which an arbitrator ruled we had the right to outsource. In the right to outsource, we had to come up with an agreement, a severance. Well, we covered that by selling an aged fleet, 40 buses, for $650,000, and we did get that money. We took the first year, we took half of it in the first year to pay all of the people who needed their severance. But in addition, they had the right to be first called to DATCO. So DATCO had to look at all the members and say, you have a right to work for us if you meet our criteria. If you have a drug arrest or a driving arrest, we don't. But other than that, we're going to hire you. And really, more than 85% of them all were hired. But when they did, they immediately unionized and asked for the same wages. So the big win when you renegotiate is a company comes in and says, I'm a good company. I noticed that 3 communities in the Northeast are paying $18 to $19.50 an hour. You're 22, so we'd like to start at $18, $19.50. Well, they didn't. They renegotiated a same contract. And people who were on top were given that top. However, every new person that came in started much lower, $14. So you made a little bit, but you didn't break the back of the highest cost. 40 people who are working at $2 more an hour than their neighbors for 2,000 hours a year, $4,000 times 40 people, 160,000 at a drop of a hat. That's what we thought we'd save if they renegotiated. And they did renegotiate, but they ended up with the same contract. So when you go out to bid, that's a possibility that, you know, they could do that. You undercut the price, you don't get the quality of the driver. So, you know, it's a 50-50 decision. But I try to include things that you may have questions about, the terms of the contract, some of the things that people were not aware of. Like people have asked, I heard DATCO uses our gas. No, we buy our gas and our gas futures, because if DATCO just had it in the contract, they could say you're gonna pay $4.50 a gallon. We purchase our gas. I don't know what your rate is.
I believe Kelly's the one that actually goes for the futures.
So do you know what our rate is right now, for example, on diesel? No, I don't want to put you on the spot. What?
235.
Right.
230.
Right, but even if you go right now to the gas station, probably diesel, it's $1 more. So we did that because we knew we could save that money. We didn't put the paras over there because we wanted to keep training the paras for the special needs. So some of the things we held, and then, do you remember, I don't, again, we go way back, but I think when we were at the site, we paid $35,000 for use of the building. But that jumped to 70 or something, 75 something.
I think so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I think it was on
So much more.
60 or 70.
yeah, it's double, because we said that's money you just can make.
5,300 a month.
I'm sorry, what?
5,300 a month.
Right, times 12, so about 60 some odd $1,000. But that's your choice to put what you believe is an appropriate rent. And that has gone up, that can go up and stuff. So I think some people were just wondering, because when we were there alone and we didn't have it outsourced, we paid it, and they thought, well, now who paid, that's DATCO's cost for renting the site, and it did increase by at least $30,000 a year. So over 5 years, 6 years now, it's about $180,000. And then a piece that nobody would think of is we obviously had some new buses because of special education, at least 4 or 5 buses. And at $50,000 for a bus for a year, especially if it only carries two or three children, a lot of that money's been recoverable. So our special ed excess has come in higher by, we used to be at $450,000, our lowest point. Our highest was $930, our lowest was $450, we're now running about $730. So we've gone back up, not just because of buses, guys, but that's one of the factors that we put in. And so we do recover on special ed excess, helps to exceed the 4.5 times. So there's information here. Oh, some people asked about, you know, why is there a 1-year extension? It's already on the front page of the memorandum. I just tried to remind everybody that, or if you had not heard it. So last year we were asked, can you hold the budget to 0? And we did our best, and you know that, you know, it was a little tighter than we could do to get to 0, but we went to DATCO and said, we've been asked to go to 0, would you be willing to freeze absolute 0? And they said yes. And we said, well, we appreciate that. For a 1-year extension, that's all we're gonna grant, but the 0 means that we're basically at the same cost unless we add a bus. And then we told them, we would do this only if you would add in, would you be willing to work with us to reduce 2 buses in the regular runs? And we make every run, and we make it on time, and we've had some checks with the board trying to find out when there were runs that were running 55 minutes, could we get it down? It started 68 minutes, we were 8 minutes over the hour. We actually had to work hard. We actually had to change the start times a little to 9:15 for Shepherd Hill and Moosup. But they helped us cut 2 buses. Now, a bus at $57,000 approximately a year is $114,000 that they helped us cut. So they gave us a flat rate, no change, because every year was going up 2.5%. Yep. 2.5%. And for that year they gave us that. So we figured, since it was an April decision and we would be back at trying to get a company here in May or June and then wondering what are we going to do if they don't have buses on time, I asked the board that would they grant, since it's allowable, 1 year. And we basically can prove to you that in the line called regular buses, we're down $100,000. We have some special ed buses that are higher, that, you know, you add a bus here. And we will go after that under excess aid where we have to add a special ed bus. But on regular ed, we knew there's no recovery. So that's where you try to save the money, because you can always save some money in state aid. When you add a bus for special needs students, you can save nothing for regular ed. And we saved a little other money this year because our rates have been frozen for 1 year. That's why we did it, because we knew that we could work with them. It would give them a chance to show their expertise. They did agree to help us try to consolidate special ed runs. We have some runs, one run that goes to Oak Hill, and another run that goes to Killingly, and another one that goes down to Norwich. Those 3 buses can't pick up 6 children and go in 3 different directions. It would be a 2.5-hour ride. It can't be. So you have 3 buses. But so does Killingly send someone down to Norwich. And so does Woodstock, someone over to Oak Hill. So we now, Ron and I met at EastCon, and we brought Killingly in. Thompson was invited. Sterling is definitely, and now Killingly is private. Sterling is private. And Thompson is with DATCO, but happens to be a purchase service. And we said what we want to do is we gave them no children's names, we gave them every child location, every school they go to, because one school is at 8:15, one school is at 8:37, one school is at 9 o'clock, and they're half an hour away from each other, so you can't drop a child at 8:15 and still get to the next school at 8:30. But that's what EastCon's doing for us. They're actually looking around our region and saying if even 2 districts that had 2 children each going to Norwich, if they shared it, at $57,000 becomes 28 for us and 28 for them. It takes a lot to do this. I'm Connecticut now because I live in Connecticut. I worked in Connecticut for the last 9 years. But when I was in Rhode Island, I was part of the Superintendent's Association that moved us to a regional special ed cost. And it's amazingly cost savings. Connecticut hasn't done that well yet, but we're going to try to be one of the first regions to do it, and the governor has said he will give grant stipends to get us to be looking at this, because it's a huge cost. And what we learned is you can save money, but here's the issue. So I have 2 children, and they're on the bus, and they need a para. And then his district has 2 children, and they don't need a para. Well, I'm going to pay that para bill. And then their child hits my child. What do I do with that? They're on the bus. I don't know that child because they're not in my district. I can't discipline that child. I have to get that. So you not only have to make the agreements of the transportation, you need to make the agreements on every part of it. Who shares the cost of a paraeducator? Who shares the responsibility for if there is an incident on the bus? How do you call all families? What police do you call if the bus had to stop for a reason? So there's a lot of work that goes into it. But we're sitting on, just a special ed, is it 11 buses?
Oh, yeah.
So-
Yeah, there's 5 plus 6, 10, probably 14.
So 14 at even 50,000, 700,000. So I can't say it'll be 350, I can just tell you that it's a big nut to crack in 700,000. That won't be a company coming in, that's not a bid, that's really planning with other districts. Because 4 districts will have 4 companies. That's what it's going to take. But just so you had the idea of how big the transportation challenge is, it's pretty significant to try to figure out how to coordinate all of your regular buses, after-school athletic buses, special ed buses, and within-day runs. But they've done some very nice things for us, DATCO has. I would say they've served fairly well. It is time to consider. My biggest challenge is we're trying to get a consultant in now, because if the board decides to do this, takes this action, then they meet on, I think, February 11th, like as early as the 12th, they need to get a bid out, so that on March 1st, they come back and we can make a decision, because on March 8th, you want to be able to say, you have from March 8th till July 8th to get everything ready, all new buses and everything else. There's a lot to share, but again, it's here, you can read it later. We had 40 buses. I don't think it was there were 5 buses under 5 years old, or 6 buses under 5 years old, or 3 years old. We were buying 3, but you don't remember this either. In your capital budget, 3 buses a year, $80,000 each, $250,000. We did a lease purchase of 3 buses each year. Well, what does that come to when you start accruing it? So Ron and I sat down within the 2nd and 3rd year of my tenure, and Ron said, look at this. I'm spending $250,000 a year on just leasing arrangements or loan arrangements. And I went, but at $250,000 a year, you could buy 3 new buses. So we let all the loans run out in 2 years, and then we just said, if we're putting $250,000 into paying a loan for 3 buses every year that you have to, think about it, 40 buses. If you don't replace 4 buses a year, every 10 years you don't have buses, because 4 buses are gonna go. They don't last 10 years. 7 years is usually the maximum, unless you really do well. And our buses, some of them were 8, 9, and 10 years old, with 400,000 miles on them. So it was like, we were paying things that people didn't realize. You're paying for the bus, the capital responsibility. Do you know, another point, do you know how much money you get just from the fact that those buses are on our property? There are literally 20 buses, at least, that are worth $80,000, and don't you tax them because they're resident? What?
I don't think so.
I'm taxing New Britain.
But I thought they were taxed here.
I don't think so.
Oh, I think you should at least check that. My understanding is that there is a tax responsibility because they are housed here on our property. So that'll be interesting. But we'll check that for you. I think you should check it. So again, what happened was we were trying to replace 4 buses every year. We don't do any of that anymore. And when they brought in buses, all brand new, all state of the art, all visual and audio to review the students, every one of them has a protection in the back of the bus. No driver can leave without going and pushing the handle. That means there can't be anybody asleep, on the chair, because they have to go past that. And all brand new. So right now, all those buses are 6 years old. That's another reason why you want to start thinking about where we're going.
All right, so this will be on the February Board of Ed agenda?
It will be,
Okay.
yep.
So
How
definitely,
many districts does that go handle, you know, okay?
Yeah, the total I don't know. I know that they're into the 1820. The new ones in the area are Thompson, Woodstock,
I heard
Plainfield.
around 18-ish,
That's about the number that I know, 18 to 20.
and you can buy the fuel cheaper than they can.
I'm sorry?
And you can buy the fuel cheaper than they can?
Yes, we can. And even if we can't buy it, what they would have put in the contract would have been something with a surcharge, because they have purchasing and then they have management. In Rhode Island, when I did it, we actually bought gas futures, so we bought for the entire year. You don't have the tanks to do that,
And they're cheating the state out of fuel tax, too.
and
They're cheating the state out of fuel tax, too.
when they
If they would have bought it, they had to pay fuel tax.
would have to pay
So the state's losing money.
and they would have to pass that on to us. So I think we did some things that were good, at least to get started. We made the transition. I really do appreciate you for taking the time. It's stuff that people just don't know. They don't have all the facts, and I think there's some interesting things.
If you don't mind, a couple questions. So you'll have basically the February 11th meeting to talk about putting out to bid for the 12th.
If we can, yep.
Okay, so that's 21 days from now. Are you going to be taking input from other people, and who's on the committee to talk about the negotiation, putting the bid package together?
So when we did it the last time, because we did it the first time we did it, we basically had a consultant come in and present to the board the information, which basically replicates the service we have, and so that it just gives the opportunity. The question is more when it comes in, who's the review agents for, and we're welcome to have people, Board of Finance, the town are welcome. We do that for the Chartwells, which is $1 million. We do that for our energy. And there's not always a committee per se, but there always is input that we need so that people can have a set of eyes and just share more of the responsibility. Like when we have a member sit on our negotiations with certified staff, it helps the Board of Finance know that the process was upheld and that we got the best deal we could at the time. So we would extend that. Just like we just invited people from the board and from the town on our facilities, we're asking for people to do that so that we can show that we're collaborating. So we would invite a member. Yeah.
My point would be basically that I think this is a great board to actually start drafting questions or concerns to bring to, before you actually draft the entire final version of your agreement to go out to bid. Now would be the time to do that, and there's some questions that have come in the past, and so maybe if you pass that along to the chair and he can forward it off, that might be a good way to do it. Or else even for the public, if they have concerns and questions, we hear it all the time.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then of course, I also encourage, not just for this subject, but for anything relating to education, is members to attend the Board of Ed. Both the regular meeting, but then the subcommittee, the finance subcommittee meeting, which, things pertinent that we should be aware of, so.
It gives you a more granular view of what's really happening and some background for it. So anyone who does that, we certainly would welcome input.
Gary, was there also a question about utilities? Was that?
Well, that's part of the lease, so I wasn't sure if that changed to this
Yeah,
DACO contract, that was a lease with the town.
okay,
So I didn't want to bring that up if it wasn't on the agenda.
yeah. No, but just because it fell, because I know it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I still have issues with that.
The DACO agreement, yeah,
Yeah, I still have issues with that, and
okay.
maybe paying for part of the roof too when it's done too.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ken? No? All right. Ken,
Thank you much.
All right, moving on to item D, reviewing the fiscal year 1920 budget statement. Kelly, I wanted to first welcome back and thank you for getting this out. I think you got it out by like last Thursday, which is always helpful because I know for me, even though the work week may end at the end of the week, then the rest of the work week is usually on the weekend. And for me, a lot of times that's reviewing this stuff prior to the meeting, so appreciate you giving us that amount of time before the meeting to be able to go through it. And then we can discuss and ask questions as need be now. So any particular updates that you'd like to give?
I just wanted to show you that I posted a bulk of revenue. So education cost share that was received in October, so that's now posted, 3.7 million. Adult education received a payment of 75,000 back, I think it was in August. Mashantucket Pequot Fund, we got one of our 3 payments, we usually get that in 3 payments, 27,000. Reimbursement for disability and the veterans exemption from the state of Connecticut, we received those. And there was other state revenues, just miscellaneous revenue. But the state revenue, as of right now, we received 3.8 million. So you guys can keep more accurate record of when we're expecting it. Nothing from Town Aid Road though yet. State of Connecticut hasn't yet released that. I don't know why, but it hasn't been released. Usually we receive a payment of 144 by now, but nothing right yet. So I'll keep you guys up to loop on that.
We're the only town that hasn't received
No,
that.
none of the towns.
None of the towns.
None of the towns. So, and Town Aid Road is very important right now because of winter time. We get sand, salt from there, overtime for the highway workers comes from there a lot. So, local revenue, that has been pretty much, I think, up to date. I think Louise has been posting that. You can see building permits, 87,000 out of 80. I was told the building department is very busy right now, so that's above what we budgeted, 80,000. Interest and liens, I was able to post, if you guys look on the second page, I was able to post your tax revenue. So tax revenue is now posted up through December. So you can see we budgeted 27 million, right now to date we have 8.6. Another important thing is back taxes. We budgeted was 425,000, we received 354. So we only have 70,000 left to meet your budget number for the year, which is usually doable. And then, yeah, those are the important revenue numbers I think you guys should have and you should be able to see on a monthly basis.
Quick question. On the police revenues,
Yes.
what's about the duty? And,
Special duty, that's when the officers go out and direct traffic, it's called other special duty. At the end of the year, we post it, so as of June 30th, I'll ask, what do you guys have left to collect? Say it's $70,000, so I'll leave a $70,000 receivable in there and post the rest as revenue. So
they
you always see it at the end of the year.
They retain that until the end of the year?
Yes.
It doesn't go to you?
No, it keeps growing because in that account, you have salaries that we're paying to them, and then we're trying to collect money from the vendors to pay for those salaries. So it comes in, it goes out, it's a receivable account, and at the end of the year, I'll book it as revenue.
And what's miscellaneous revenue?
I don't, like, pistol permits, I don't, yeah,
Oh.
it just various things, fingerprinting on there,
The report would be much longer if they itemized it.
Yeah.
yeah, it's all miscellaneous stuff. I have copies of that in my office. I don't know if there's any questions on any of the revenues that you guys wanna.
You know what they charge an hour for traffic patrol?
It's 80 something, I think, I don't know precise, 85.
When is the first payment for a special education?
Special-
February? Special education.
Yeah, we usually get it in 2 parts of the year, right, Ron?
Yep.
So is it February and then
February.
later in June? Is it
No,
June the second half?
May.
May?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
B and G overtime, any idea what that might have been? Building and grounds?
Buildings and grounds. Oh, so overtime on the expenses?
Yeah.
That is, buildings and ground maintenance department overtime.
Uh,
Sometimes they have, overtime for events here. If we have rental hall, overtime will be charged there. And expenditures, let's see. I was able to post on the back page all your debt payments. So Town of Plainfield pays their debt payments in July and January. So all of those have come out of our bank account. There's one sewer project payment that'll be made in January. So then we'll be all up to date with our debt payments are done, will be completed for the year. Health insurance, 6 months of payments have been made to that for self-insured health insurance for the town. Pension payments for the year, we budgeted 1 million, we paid so far to date 750,000. I just made another contribution to that. I haven't had a chance to really go in detail with the expenditures, but trying to post as we go. Animal control, I think it's page 5. I posted, we budgeted for the year various line items. So what happens with that, electricity, advertising, vehicle gas, and vet bills, we transfer those monies to the dog fund, and the dog fund pays all of those. So right now, it's sitting in the dog fund. I just paid the licensing fees to the state of Connecticut to the dog fund. It was like 7,100. Last year it was 7,900. So we collected more fees last year than what we're doing right now.
What is, in the bill inspector department, what is relocation?
Yeah.
When people get misplaced, if there's a fire in a house, I mean, I think we just had one, correct? Or a condemned house,
Yes.
then we have to relocate them per state statute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we don't usually do that, but this year there was one relocation with 3 families, so it did cost us a bit. And
Yeah.
I'll talk about that at the end.
Okay.
You can see one other thing I was just
We
thinking
haven't
of.
done anything for regulatory approval.
No, we went out to bid for it, but, looks like we're going to be going to bid again. So that project would start in the spring. I don't think they would start it up now.
What was that done? You just,
Huh?
I didn't hear you. What
Bid-
Bid bond, right?
Yeah.
The highway garage, oh, okay.
Yeah, the issue came back with the incorrect information on what we considered the lowest bid, so we decided to do the fair thing, which was put it back out to bid.
Yeah, because I know that was gonna be a question, you know, I know you'll get us the information as soon as possible, is with the 150, we got budgeted, how much more beyond that might be?
I anticipate probably about another 20, we'll find out when we get the actual bids back in,
Yeah,
another 20, so. And I've got a plan to take care of that.
okay.
Workers, like,
Workers' comp?
the election workers.
Election.
Oh, yes. We're gonna have to do a line item transfer for
Do you
that.
mind if I just jump in, because I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Talk about
Most of these questions are the ones you're looking at right now.
yeah,
So I've sat down with Kelly and Tom, we talked about doing line item transfers on a quarterly basis. At our next selectmen's meeting, which is on the 27th, I'll bring all of these items up with line item transfers, and I will share that with the board for their next meeting, your board, for the next meeting, to talk about all these things, which are, looks like it's overages at this point. So let's start off with the legal notices. For some reason, there were a lot of legal notices, but we have about $4,000 we're gonna do line item transfers from one item, and one item only at this point, and that is because we didn't hire a new highway supervisor. So we anticipated the cost of the supervisor, how much the annual salary was, plus the benefits, to be a total of $80,000. So at this point, we'll be drafting from there. So I have a list of $4,000 from that highway salaries line item, which is 10/61/02/24, and it's going to go to the legal notices after advertising of 10/62/03/10. So that's 4,000 there. Election workers, I think that it was just under budgeted, to be fair, because we didn't take into consideration that there would have been a primary, and also I don't think they took into consideration the fact that there was a Democratic primary coming up in a couple of months. So without those two things, obviously they're going to be needing more money. So I'm looking to do $10,000 from, again, from the highway salaries, which is 10610224, to the election workers to cover for the rest of the year for 10610320. The next one is the one you asked the question about, relocation. All right, so we had a situation in town where we needed to relocate 3 families. The cost of that is exactly the number you see right there, 4160.57, which was over what we usually allocated was 1,000. You'll see in my next year's budget, I'm going to actually pop that up because just in case there's an issue, you want to make sure you have enough money there, so I will put that up. But really what it's going to come from, again, is highway salaries, 10610224, to relocation, which is 10621432. Next one up is, we have the announced retirement of our town clerk, and therefore we are having her train the new town clerk. So you've got 2 people in the same position for a few weeks. So you'll see the town clerk's department head at, which is 10610118. It's a little short, so I just found out today what the number was in that. So it's going to be 2544 and a quarter. It's going to come from the highway salaries again at 10610224, and it's going to go right to the department head for that department, which is 10610118. And believe me, I'll give you a copy of all of this. So, the next one up is the, we were looking at the vehicle expense. You approved the vehicle to be purchased, but I want to make sure we do it right so that you have it in a line item transfer. It's going to go building inspector vehicle expense, which was $17,258 from highway salaries, which is 10610224, to the vehicle expense, which is 10624232, for a grand total of $37,962.82. Now, the police chief is going to come to you also with 2 line item transfers, and again, I will share that with you, if you don't mind. Okay, so that's the police training memberships that they're going to need. So it's $15,000 from police salaries, which is going to be $6102.30, and it's go to training memberships, which is $6213.30. And there's one smaller one, which is $400 for uniforms. He's taking that from sick day incentive, which is $1061.30, to uniform allowance $1061.08.30. Now, there is some money, some good news at the end of this tunnel here. We anticipate that we'll be having some savings from sick and vacation payouts, some general insurance, workers' comp. We did find an issue with postage. Trying to figure out what happened with the postage, and Kelly can explain a little bit about that.
So we use the postage for, obviously postage, but we do tax bills in July. So we prepaid it in June, and then we paid it in July. So we're gonna use that. We do payments, we send out bills again in May, June, so we're gonna be using those funds for it. It was double paid.
Yep.
In July.
I just want to make sure you're aware of what happened, so, okay? And then we may come back to you with some items for a computer, but I have to go through those line item by line item, but I will do that with you. And I will give you all of this material at, prior to the next meeting. I'll share that with you. And that's it.
Yeah, what I foresee is that our regular Board of Finance meeting in February, we'll do line item transfers. What I'll request through you, Kevin, because I know you meet with the department heads, and I usually will do follow-up with them just to confirm as we get closer, is if we can, for all those particular departments, so like when we're talking about computer, when we're talking about the chief, is to have them come out to that Board of Finance meeting, so that way if we have any more questions that pop up, we can direct it right to them.
No problem.
Quick question too on the animal control.
Yes.
For vehicle/gas, you already used everything up there?
Yeah, I'm not sure how she allocates
We
that.
allocate it back to the dog fund, and all the checks get cut from the dog fund.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with the vet fees?
Yes, yep. And that's just to show you guys, that's roughly what it costs for a year. But whatever's, it's sitting in the dog fund. Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere.
So that's similar to like the police, they kind of put
Yeah.
in their kitty
Yeah,
until...
yeah. It's kind of WPCA too, sewer fund.
Did you want to mention also the issue that Louise has been having a dog fund monies, which were allocated for 2 years, which she was able to turn over? Or she
The
will be?
LoSiP, town clerk's LoSiP, yeah. The town clerk, when she collects fees for recording fees, she can collect, I think, $1 or $3 for $3 from, and then she can put it into a fund called the LoSiP fund. And it's funding that the town can use for projects. So there's money sitting in that too, so we can use that for projects. I
It's the
forgot
same-
how much.
Same LoSiP funds that we have allocated, you see here. I think it was 20,000,
20,000, yes.
so.
Yep.
How about on the general town computer?
That's why I want to sit down and go line item by line.
Right.
I can ask him to read it as simple as possible, so it makes it easier for all of us to understand, but I want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Obviously, there's no longer, the Windows 7 is no longer serviceable. So if there's a problem, there's a problem. So we're looking to go upgrade to 10, but there's also the plan that he had with every year he's gonna put up X amount of new computers. So I wanna sit down and see what's really been done, what upgrades need to be happening. And you also, don't forget, he services the police station as well. It should have been, in my opinion, it should have been under the police budget in that area, but we'll talk about it, and I will be more than happy to have him come and explain it and share it with everybody.
It's not a big dollar figure here, but given that we're already towards the end of January,
Yep.
we've only used up about 15% of the economic development budget. Is there a big plan in store for the last 5 months of the year, or is that gonna be the subject of
Well, I
line
have to sit down with
transfers?
department by department and ask that same question. So I will sit with her and ask what's going on with that. I think there might have been plans to do more involvement with the community and get out there more. And also, if you notice on the town website, we're trying to promote businesses by putting up links to different businesses that we're going to visit and do that. Is also trying to change the setting on there as well to half of the page will be to the new businesses. The other half is going to be to properties that are empty that we're trying to sell. We have a couple we're going to be putting up there soon. So economic development doesn't cost a lot for that. But we definitely want to be able to go out there and promote more by putting out marketing in magazines and promoting online to different agencies. So those things will be happening. So I'll get you more details at the next meeting.
Oh, we purchased a highway truck, that's another thing that we did the first week that I was here. So, yes,
Did we purchase or lease?
leased it,
Lease.
yeah.
That was in the budget for, what was it, 60?
68?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a
68.
couple years.
Yeah. So it'll be a lease for 3 years, 2 more payments after this year.
Kelly, I don't know if you're able to answer this question at this point in time,
Yep,
but looking at the revenues, just in tax collection,
yes.
I know when we're building the budget, we use a certain collection estimate percentage of what the
I think it's 97, right?
97?
I think so, yeah.
I believe that changed with over the most recent. or
Oh,
maybe-
okay, I have to look at that, I didn't notice
I
that.
think that moved for.
To 98?
98.
Might have, yeah, I think that moved up.
Okay,
And I'm just curious to see whether or not, and maybe it's something
If it's-
you track, whether we're on
accept-
track to hit that, exceed
okay,
it.
yeah, I
or
can
where-
look at that.
Where that figure's
So-
gonna lay, because I figure that's pretty important in setting the
Yeah.
future budgets.
Yes, it is. There's 2 ways you could do that. You could do like a 97% collection, which that's the majority of the towns in the state of Connecticut do. And then what they'll do is supplemental. They'll have a line for supplemental, like car taxes, built into that budget too. So let me look to see what our supplemental is, because maybe that's the 1% and why they bumped it to 98. If that's the case, then I'd be okay with it, but I'll look at it.
Okay, thanks.
I have one other question. On the general town, you have, well, we're getting revenue from the state for town made roads,
Yes,
correct?
we should be.
But then you have
Yeah.
the same number in the general town.
It's usually done like that to show the revenue and then the expenditure.
Yeah, it's on both sides. You'll see an expenditure. We
Yeah.
probably spent money out of there, but not yet received it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, then we have 300 grand for road construction too.
Yeah,
That's from the
From the
town
fund
budget
balance.
itself, from the town
Right.
side. Yep.
from the fund balance for road paving.
There's one in there that's supposed to be the same.
So
number.
technically you have 590
Yep, and if you,
grand for
right, and if you
roads.
think about it, the town also utilizes low SIP monies for that as well, whether it be for bridge upgrades, which we have another one coming up. But those are things that you have to kind of forecast out, how much you're gonna spend for bridge upgrades, how much you would spend for road repair, and those are the 3 areas you would be able to take it from.
So when you have a line item from town made roads for 289, is that part of the mill rate?
No, because you're gonna get revenue on the other side, so the revenue
Yeah,
and
but-
expenditures is not built into the mill rate.
It's not.
No,
No.
because what I do is like you get state revenue, say $5, and then local revenue $10, and we need to bring in $20, so that $5 is your mill rate. Yep. If I didn't have revenue, then yes, it would be part of your mill rate to offset it.
I guess, just to write on that question then, is there anything that we anticipate having to either look at line item transfers to compensate for the lack of revenue to this point for town aid roads? Is there monies that we're looking to have to appropriate from somewhere else?
I've never, in my history, I've never seen them not come through with town aid road, but it could be a first, you know? State has
You can take it
always-
out of 300 grand, for sure.
No,
The road construction money, we're not gonna get any roads paved. You wanna pave roads,
Well, you're gonna get the money from the state.
we should,
You can do
yes.
that, yeah. I mean,
Well,
some
road
should,
construction's fund balance,
yeah.
300,000, yes, yeah,
I mean, if something comes up, you can use that.
right. Like town aid road, like I said in the past, we've used for sand and salt and overtime for the highway workers in the winter. Then what's left over, projects, like you can pay a lease payment out of there for a highway truck. There's various things you can do. It's very structured, but there's things you can do with that funds. So, yeah, I wouldn't spend it if you weren't receiving it. Yeah, my recommendation.
Have any updates on the pool situation as far as expense, and we're gonna have to pay for that?
we're still waiting for the part to come in.
Okay.
Things happen every day, so
Yeah.
I'll try to keep you updated as best I can. There was a email I got sent yesterday talking about, maybe the day before, talking about other parts which might be broken. We refer to this as the money pit.
Yeah.
I'm not really happy about it, but I'll bring the information to the board and as soon as possible. But basically, there's the thing about it, what we'd like to do is bring a brand new pump in line. And we have an issue with the filters right now where they're not as sturdy as they used to be. So we actually, if you take a look at your 5-year capital, you'll notice that in a couple of years, we have all of these items I'm going to mention, which are on the 5-year capital, whether it's next year or the year after. You never know really what items are going to break. I mean, we walked in today to the town hall and we had no heat. So fortunately, it was a part that they're overnighting, so we can actually get it fixed tomorrow. So again, anything happens. So we have an idea that definitely the pool pump is definitely need to be being replaced. We have filters which could go anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 to replace. We have, these are sand filters, so if you put the pump in line right now, and the sand filters are weakened already, you could have a problem and you could blow them out. And then, seeing as though it's already in the 5-year capital, I would consider thinking that maybe it might be a good time to have everything taken place if we have money left over this year. The other one was like the heating coil. That's another one that's like $4,500, I think, for that. I think that we were talking about while we were down, looking at the shower areas, to seeing if we can upgrade. If you notice in the shower area, it's the older style metal separator walls, and those will rust because of the permanent steam. So we're looking to upgrade those, maybe about $2,500 between the two bathrooms, to put those with like a marine grade material. We're looking for cheaper numbers, obviously, but we'll continue looking. Again, if there's money left over available. I can tell you right now that there is some money left over, obviously, from the one hire that we didn't do. But there's also, if you would consider, the idea that earlier this year, there was, end of last year, there was the sale of the properties from leftovers from the highway department and sewer department. So they took in about $36,000, and I think the number we have going to, they had to split up the monies going properly. So from the town side of it, it went back into the general fund of $31,648.07. So if I was to come to you and say, look, there's some monies available to do some of these things, on top of the monies we have from savings from insurance, from sick, vacation payouts, general insurance, workman's comp, those things would add up, and then I might be able to at least properly come to you with a real plan of, let's do some of those 5-year capital items that we had later on, do them now. It saves you from the next year's 5-year capital and so on and so forth, which in turn, if everything works, we then hold off and actually make a better deal for the residents, because next year's budget, we're not including those in it. And there's another plan I have also just to pass through to the Board of Finance in the future about how you do your purchases for your 5-year caps, whether it's inclusive in the budget or not. I'd like to see a different format so that we're not really putting it all together on the taxpayers for that 1 year, but I'll talk to you about that after. And Tom, I'll get you a total of that proposed numbers for the pool.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion, questions regarding our budget statement? All right. And moving on to citizen participation. As always, remember that this is a special meeting, so we're not going to be talking about bizarre subjects just coming out of nowhere regarding Board of Finance, so it needs to be specific to what we discussed tonight. Otherwise, I open the floor. Yes.
Travis One and 116 New Road. If anything comes to the Board of Finance based on the DACO contract, as a citizen and a former employee of DACO working at Plainfield Bus Garage, I would highly recommend looking to put an RFP out and look at new contractors. I've heard nothing good from citizens and teachers about the services they provide. Having worked with them, I'd say that it's shoddy at best. I think there would be, for the money that we're spending, could probably get better service.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Yep.
So who's going to check into the tax revenue issue on those school buses being housed here? They're gonna check
Yeah, I
on
can look
that?
into that, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we do collect taxes on those,
Okay.
but I'll make sure.
Well, when I worked there,
Yeah.
that question was specifically brought up during the contract
Yeah.
negotiations, and if I remember correctly, those are registered in New Britain, therefore New Britain collects the taxes on those buses. Because DACO's headquarters is in New Britain, Connecticut.
Right, no, I understand that, yeah. I don't do.
Things could have changed since then, in 6 years.
I'll verify that.
And my second question is, you said that there was money received from a veterans fund? For revenue coming in?
Yeah, it's for the assessor's office. I don't know the whole program, okay? Residents can come into the assessor's office, and there's a form you fill out, and then they submit it to the state, and you'll get a deduction, say a small deduction in your taxes, and then we get reimbursed from the state of Connecticut for that.
Okay. And now my other question is, for our Plainfield Police Department, when they do some of these like drug raids and seizures and they confiscate, what happens with those items if they're sold, are they auctioned, where does the revenue, what's up with that revenue?
I don't know anything about that.
State takes a lot of that.
I don't know anything about that.
Interesting.
So,
Cash.
yeah.
Cash, the cash that they
Interesting,
seize.
interesting, Don.
Cash
I'll
that
just
they
leave it at
seize.
that. Thank you.
And I do get it like a $1,500, I'm a vet, so I get a $1,500 abatement off my taxes, yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments for citizen participation? No? In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.